On actually a fairly pleasant and mild December evening. It dried up. Thank you for those who have assisted so kindly in various ways setting up. It's no small task. Marcus, I think you're around there somewhere. I hear that you were taking a bit of abuse at the other end of the road. Thank you for standing in and enduring what you had to for that. Thank you to those who have assisted with the music, the fantastic voices and instrumentalists. Really appreciate each of you. What makes Christmas a challenge for some? I was thinking about this question. For some, it is the most wonderful time of the year, but for others, maybe not so much. And it occurred to me that what makes Christmas a challenging time for some is the power of absence. We had to move in to the building there last year due to the cold. But 2 years ago, we were out here in the street, and quite a few of you were with us. Looking around tonight, who was present then, who is not now? I know I remember as I watched as Joan from the very end of the road walked up. She was in a bright coat, and I was surprised to see her because she had been enduring lengthy illness. And I remember after we had packed everything away for the evening, visiting Dennis here in the house in the corner. He was homebound, but he heard us singing from his upstairs room and was eager to assist in what way he could by letting us use his electricity for the lights and the piano and all of that good stuff. Both of them are no longer with us. Perhaps, like my family, you have known other losses this year. Ileana, my wife, who's assisted us with playing the piano this evening, she heard news that her great aunt, who was very close to her and her family, had died just before Christmas last year in my in-laws' house. And she was followed only a few months later by her younger sister, Ileana's grandmother. Indeed, my last surviving grandmother died a couple of months after that. And so for some of us, the past year has been marked by grief, by loss, and therefore, Christmas is marked for many by absence. An empty chair at the table, a Christmas card no longer received, more leftovers because you haven't quite figured out how to adjust the portions. Christmas then can be a time of grieving. But let's not sit there, shall we? It's not overly pleasant to think too much about that. Because Christmas can also be a time of healing. The season holds the potential, should we reach for it, to spend time with each other in family, community, and congregation. We sing songs, enjoy food, share gifts, and generally enjoy the best of togetherness, even we might say the best of togetherness that we might see all year. For some, there is also the celebration of new life born. Jesus wasn't, after all, the only Christmas baby. Ileana and I may have known some loss, but we also have the joy of expecting our long-awaited first child, likely within the 12 days of Christmas. So we'll see how that works out. The grief of absence, indeed, can be overwhelmed by the powerful joy of presence. Not presents, Presents, but presence. Being with each other, being together. Last year, one of the gifts that was waiting for me under the tree was a little volume of wartime speeches from the Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky. My younger brother knows that I love history and current events, leadership, rhetoric, and thanks to my wife Ileana, the people and places of her homeland, Ukraine, are very near and dear to my heart. It was an excellent gift, I opened it, and there in front of my family, decided I would just browse it and read the first sentence of the introduction, and I got a bit choked up. It moved me. It wasn't even by the president. It was the man who compiled this. This is what he wrote. Volodymyr Zelensky's most important speech was also his shortest. It lasted about 32 seconds and was delivered 38 hours after Russia began an unprovoked all-out war against his country. Dressed in khaki, Zelensky filmed himself outside a government building on his phone. In the background stood various members of his senior team. "Good evening, everyone," he said. "We are all here. Our soldiers are here. Civil society is here. We defend our independence, and this is how it will always be from now on." Among the many other speeches, this one, a few seconds long, mainly featuring the repetition of one word, had the most impact. Its power was in that one word, translated into English, here. The leader was letting his people know that he was not going anywhere and that they could find comfort and take courage from that. He was here. The message of Christmas is just that, here. At our Christmas Eve service, we will sing the song, O Come, Emmanuel." Emmanuel means God with us, here. An early Christian leader, the Apostle Paul, visited Athens once, and some people heard him talking about Jesus and how this man was in fact God with us, who died a horrible but heroic sacrificial death to satisfy the demands of divine justice and to demonstrate the extent of divine love. Paul had not always believed. He was once extremely hostile to belief. But here he was, a changed man facing a challenging audience. Some of the philosophers present invited him to a forum where he was able to speak more. And while there, he commented on an engraving that he had passed dedicated to the unknown God. The idea behind this inscription seemed to be, maybe we're wrong in our beliefs. Maybe we're wrong in our unbelief. Let's cover our bases, hedge our bets, just to be on the safe side. If we get to heaven and there's someone there that we weren't expecting, some God that we weren't worshiping, maybe we can say, "Oh, we have a pedestal for you. We just didn't know you." Paul proceeded to tell them, quite graciously, about the God they didn't know. He's bigger than you can ever imagine. The Greeks had a very active imagination. Paul told them about Jesus in the shadow of the vast Acropolis complex, at the pinnacle of which stood the Parthenon. But Paul said, no, He's bigger than you could ever imagine. He is Lord of heaven and earth. He doesn't live in buildings. He's not served by our hands, nor does He need anything. It's not that God needs us, it's that we need God. And He gives us life and breath and everything. Who you are in your beautiful individuality, complexity, and diversity is by His design. The things that we take for granted every day are all part of His glorious, mind-blowing plan, and we exist in a state often of ignorance, but it's chosen ignorance, isn't it? Whatever life has thrown at you this year, perhaps pause this Christmas. Don't lose. And if you have lost, seek to regain a sense of transcendence, of awe, of wonder, even the ability to be at peace with mystery. For although we may not be able to fully comprehend God, we can know Him. God's intent, Paul said, was that the people of earth should seek God and perhaps feel their way toward Him and find Him. There is no better season than this to to begin doing just that. But Paul said that God is not only bigger than you could ever imagine, He is closer than you could ever dream. From the soaring heights of divine transcendence, Paul steps down to immanence. In some way, God seems far, but He's actually near. He is, Paul says, actually not far from each one of us. I visited Athens this September. And although it's a relatively pleasant evening tonight, Athens seems very far away. That seems like a long time ago. Ileana and I had never been before. We had an amazing time. Now, I'd seen on the map where we were supposed to be staying near the Parthenon. And so I expected a great view when we arrived at our local station. But I didn't see it. I walked out and I saw loads of people. I heard lots of noise. There was a market, but I didn't see the Parthenon. Maybe our lodgings would have a view. Well, we found our room and I looked out the window, but only saw the narrow, litter-strewn, somewhat unpromising street beneath and a graffiti plastered building across the way, not quite the Parthenon. We walked around that afternoon and evening, and the next day went to a couple of other areas, but a Parthenon sighting for 2 days in Athens still eluded us. Though I was on holiday, an emergency came up and it required a phone call intervention. And afterwards I was a bit stressed. It was quite late. It was 11 o'clock at night. So I went for a walk. I turned, walked down the road. I turned again. And then I turned around. And I began to walk in a different direction, downhill. And then I looked up and I saw it. Bathed in light against the night sky, the Parthenon. It was there the whole time, but I was walking in the wrong direction. I was looking in the wrong places. I was distracted by the hustle and bustle of the world around me. I was blinded by the light of day and distracted by the other lights of night that I hadn't looked up and seen the Parthenon. I had to turn around to find it. I had to walk down to look up. I had to walk through the night to see. But it was where it had always been, not far, but near. It was present the whole time. The problem was not the lack of the Parthenon, it was that I lacked upward perspective. Herein is a parable, perhaps for us all. God is bigger than you could ever imagine. And God is in Jesus Christ is closer than you could ever dream. He is merciful. He knew that we were prone to walking the wrong way, either looking down destructively or inward despairingly. So in Jesus Christ, He came to us, light of the world, creator into creation, into our darkness, so we could know the power of His presence. God the Son came down from heaven, entering this world as a helpless baby. He learned the people's language and lifestyle. He loved us despite all of our transgressive messiness. He lived among us, but He did not sin. He got to know us. He lived to serve us. He died and rose again to save us from sin, from evil, from transgression, the disorder which we have brought to His good world, and indeed eternal consequence. When He came to earth, the message of the angels, of which we have sung, was essentially here. When He returned to heaven, the message that He left for all who turn around and trust in Him was here. Emmanuel, God with us, says, I am with you always, even to the end of the age. Here. And it is my hope and prayer for us all that we know the power of His presence with us this Christmas. and that we make the proclamation of the angels. Hear the invitation of our hearts. Lord, hear. May the Lord bless you and keep you and cause His face to shine upon you and give you peace this Christmas.